Hi everyone, Diane here. Welcome to my studio. Today we have something special for you, which is a live premiere where I'm going to be talking about, showing you and introducing you to the use of these wonderful new brushes, which are going to become available for you in just a few minutes from Craftamo. So if you're interested and want to buy a set of these brushes, do please go over to craftamo.com. They're going to be coming up for sale any minute now. And to be quite honest, we don't know really how many of them are going to be sold straight away, but it could be quite a lot. And if they do run out, then that's it basically, because it's a limited edition, a true limited edition. A certain number have been made. Once they're gone, they're gone. I, on the other hand, am lucky because I already have my set. So in this beautiful box here, and I'm going to, in a minute, show you myself using these brushes to paint something similar to this. It won't be exactly the same. Nothing ever is it, when you do something second time round? Or in my case, I don't know, the 100th time round, it won't be exactly the same as this painting. Here's the original, by the way. This is the original painting, so it's quite a big one. And I did that 3 years ago, I think, something like that. A little bit similar to the style that Deborah Rosenbach does. I think you've seen her paintings too. We were both doing the same kind of thing, more or less the same sort of time, a couple of years ago, coincidentally. Anyway, so opening up this box, which is a nice box. If you want to give somebody a lovely gift for Christmas, somebody who's interested in starting to paint, especially if they're interested in loose painting rather than the fine detailed stuff, this is a good set. It's beautifully presented. It comes wrapped in cellophane, which I've already taken off. And inside you will find a beautiful print of this painting, which is not as big as this, obviously, because it fits inside the box. But when it's framed, it looks quite nice. And with any luck, I'll be able to show you a picture of that as we go along. I think we did in an earlier video show you that one framed up. Anyway, so in the box, oh, do you think I could sit down and do this? In the box, we have got a 1-inch flat, which is this one. And now this is an homage to my teacher, Ron Ranson, who years ago I went on a course with him and he made a big difference to my painting. If you have the right teacher, you know, it can make a huge difference. And he did most of his beautiful loose paintings with just 3 brushes, one of which was like this, a 1-inch flat. And with that, you can paint pretty much anything. For example, yesterday, you probably will have seen this by now. I did this little sketch using this brush, big brush, small painting, but nice and loose. And that's what happens when you use a big brush to paint with. So heartily recommend this. And because this Craftamo set is so inexpensive, you know, we've got 3 big hairy brushes here. Lots of hair for your money. And 3 smaller ones as well. So going on from the flat one, we've got a 1/2-inch mop. Now you might say, what am I going to do with that? Well, this is very, very good for all sorts of things, especially backgrounds. And you can create a loose background. And when it's wet, it comes to a point. So you can even paint quite detailed things with this, although you wouldn't think so. So again, it's a very flexible sort of brush. And then we've got here the cat's tongue, which is similar. It does, I mean, all 3 of these will do backgrounds. They'll all do loose foliage. They'll all do loose leaves and things like that. But this one is particularly well pointed and is exceedingly good for things like petals and leaves, and also does an extremely good background. I used it on this one, which I did also yesterday. I was very busy yesterday, and used this one to do the background, and I was quite pleased with the way that came out, to be quite honest. Quite loose and nice. So there's that. So 3 brushes down, 3 to go. Then we have a size 14 round. All of these brushes have got Taklon hairs, which is a polyamide, I think. It's not exactly the same as nylon. I'm not sure if I've got that right. Anyway, it's synthetic, animal friendly. No animals were harmed in the creation of these brushes. The ferrule is recycled metal and the handle is wood, and it's been painted with multiple coats of shiny paint. It's gloss, so that means that they're easy to keep clean. You're not going to get any stains or anything like that on them, or even the grease from your hands. It won't mark them. Some of those ones that you get these days which have got a matte finish, they don't look very nice after a while, but these will stay nice and shiny and clean. All of them have got gold tips, so they all match one another. That was a choice I made because, you know, as I think I mentioned the other day, we had to design these ourselves. And in the design process, I selected a slightly longer than average hair length because I wanted more flexibility in my strokes than the average brush allows. For example, here is one which is, I've been using these brushes for ages. This is a size 7. And you can see there's much more flexibility, obviously, in a much longer hair like that. So there's a 14, and then we also have around 9. Same kind of thing, same everything, except it's just a bit slimmer. And then also a rigger. You could call it a rigger. Maybe it's also just a long round, but it would work perfectly for doing calligraphic marks and for hairs and, you know, what do you call them? Grasses, yes, and that kind of thing, and branches and twigs, and even rigging on a boat if you felt that way inclined, and that's a number 4. So there we are. Those are the brushes that we have on offer. And yes, so if you pop over to Craftamo, you should be able to get a set of those. By the way, they do ship worldwide, Craftamo. I think the shipping is very reasonable. If I remember rightly, from England, they come from England, but although they may have depots elsewhere as well, I'm not quite sure about that. But there shouldn't be any problem getting them, and I don't think you have to pay duty on them either. So anyway, wait a minute, I don't want to put that away because I'm going to be using those, aren't I? So I'll just get them out and put them here by the side of me. And I might use all of them in this painting. The painting I'm going to do today, like I said, is going to be hopefully some poppies. They might turn into something else, you never know. And I'm using Kuretake here. I've got a piece of Meaden rough, I think, isn't it? Yes, rough paper. This is 12 by 9. It's on a block. It's good quality paper. Then I'm going to use Kuretake paints. I've got here the colour called Rose Madder. This one is called purple, although it's not really. This one is black, and this is greenish yellow. And I think those colours are going to be enough for me to do this painting with. I've done a little tryout just to test on a smaller piece of paper. Just tried out these flowers. And so we're going to be doing something like that, only I might take it a little bit further than that. It depends how it goes. And if it doesn't work, I'll scream and go and hide in a darkened room for a bit. So I have a nice big container of water here, and I'm going to start with the mop brush, I think. So I'll just wet my brush, and I'm going to wet some blobs onto the paper like this. If I can see what I'm doing. 1, 2, 3. Just random. And then I shall pick up some pink using this, and we will hope that that it works. So we'll just put the paint on like that into the water and let it run. If you have any questions you want to ask as we're doing this, we are in the live stream and you can chat with us. Just type in your question or your comment or whatever you want. and we will do our best to answer. So I'm just not making any attempt to paint petals at this point, really. And these are going to be all roughly the same size. And then you can do a couple of things. You could pick up some of the slightly darker colour and make that a little bit thicker than your original wash, and then just try dropping in a few bits of that and let that run. So we'll do that, and then I'm going to probably move on from that brush to another one. I'll just wash that one out. And I've got a piece of kitchen towel here, and this was planned in advance, so I have done this on purpose. I'm going to just dab out the centre there, where later I'm going to put the middle of the flower. So we just lighten that up a bit. And you could, if you wanted to, also lightly dab a little bit around behind, perhaps, to give a bit more contrast. Just kind of call this mixed media at that point, don't you? And make the back ones darker, or the light. Oh, the back one's darker or the front one's darker. Either way. So that's that. And then the next thing, what are we going to do next? We're going to put some buds on, I think, next. So I think I'll take the large round, the size 14. And I forgot to put out a yellow, didn't I? Let's get the Aureolin. That's a nice transparent yellow. I quite like this palette, it's a Meaden palette, to put my selection of paints from Kuretake in, because I find it's too confusing when I look at all of them all at once. So I do that, and mix a bit of green with that as well. And let's put like that. And then if you add a bit of black at the top, you get this nice kind of running thing going on up here. Best thing is not to play with it too much. Put another one up here in a slightly different colour. Never forget your stems. They have to go down below. They do. They do. Okay, and then I think I feel sort of inspired to put a little bit of black in the centres of them to give them a bit more kind of character. Okay. Not quite finished with the buds yet, so we'll put a bit more here. Shall I go that way or shall I go that way? I'll go this way. Don't think too hard. And we could as well, I suppose, have some dried out ones, couldn't we? Now, what colour will we make those? I think we probably have to try and make a brown. And don't they kind of go upwards? Something like that. Don't try too hard to make it look like anything particular. Just bear in mind you're doing art. And then, at this point, if we're going to try to do the background, I might swap again to my large flat, and I wet that. And you can do this more than one way. You don't have to actually have any colour on your brush. You could just do it with water, or let me see, what shall I do? We could do it with blue. There might be a little bit of blue in the background, so for the sky, and allow it to touch where the paint on the other things that you've already done is still wet. So like that, you get these very nice bleeds. And the colour will change as you go down. And really the last thing you want to do is try to control it. So we're just deciding on a blue background, I think. It will dry a bit lighter as well, don't forget that. You can get this done quite quickly if you use a big brush. I don't know if you've seen that video on Facebook of Damien Hirst painting about 200 paintings all at once in a great big studio like an aircraft hangar. And he's going up and down the rows of paintings with a trolley, like a shopping trolley, full of paint, and he's just throwing paint at the paper and walking on in disgust. And he doesn't look like he's having very much fun. But I suppose at the end of the day, he'll have 200 paintings that he can sell for a fortune. So who needs to have fun if you can do that? Right, so now I'm going to just come back to the poppies and add some more red or pink. And then once I've done this, I'm going to let it dry, because I've made this mistake before of going too far, too fast, and then realizing I should have stopped. So I'm going to stop in a sec and let it dry, and then come back and see what we've done. I'm just going to add a little bit more dark here on the stems. Okay, so that's all nice and dry now. So I'm going to now take my cat's tongue brush, and I am going to have a go at increasing the interest in the background. So I'm just mixing a little bit of ultramarine with a little bit of what they call purple, and I'm going to come in with my cat's tongue brush and using the sort of side of it, really, just have a go at just kind of splashing around a bit. It's quite a pretty colour, that, the ultramarine with the what they call purple, which I don't know what I call that, but it doesn't look like purple to me. Purple to me is always kind of more bluish, I think, but anyway. So we'll just dash some of that in. And the nice thing about watercolours, because they're transparent, if you use the colours thinly, you get a different colour wherever you put your brush. When you do another coat of paint, so to speak, is going to vary, because what's underneath is going to vary. So you get an almost infinite gradation and variation of colours, which when it's dry can look quite nice. So I'm just basically going over in multiple places. And then what I've learned, one thing I've learned, probably the most important thing I've ever learned about watercolour painting, is to wait. And that means that I have to keep on turning the video off and drying it with a hairdryer or waiting until it's dry, because if you don't, then you get in a terrible mess and you miss the whole point at which the painting is actually good enough. So therefore it requires a certain amount of patience. So I'm going to stop here, but you won't notice because I'll be back in 2 seconds, probably after I've had lunch actually. So this was, this is actually going to be my favourite brush. I am really enjoying using this for backgrounds. So if you struggle with backgrounds at all, you might want to consider it. You wouldn't think it, would you? You know, you look at that and you think, well, what am I going to do with that? But some of us are going to find this brush really, really, really liberating. Okay, so I am going to continue now with this painting, which is now completely dry. And as we know, this is a loose piece of work, very loose. And at this stage, I think probably the best thing to do is to start thinking about putting in some of the defining features of a poppy. And that would be the centers of the flowers. So I'm using now the number 4 round, the long round or rigger type brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of black, and I should probably try it out first of all on my tester, and immediately you do find actually that that's perhaps a little bit too wet. Yeah, so I'll come in with that and just generally put some dots and things in place, and just, I don't want to do too much detail. I'm not a detailed person, so I'm just going to flick out a little bit the stamens and things coming out wherever I think that they look kind of reasonable. And then they've got dots on the ends, and they might have light coloured dots on the ends too. So you could put maybe light ones on one side and dark ones on the other side. Something like that. Just keep that all broken up a bit. You could put a little bit of, I think quite often the poppy has a little bit of green on the interior there. I don't know whether that's really going to show up very well, but we could do that. And then down here, same thing. Just flicking out, sort of just touch down on in the center and just flick. Make some of them longer than others, some of them fatter than others, just, you know. Something like that. And then this one. Give it some texture by just dotting. And then you could, if you wanted to, pick up a little bit more and a bit wetter and drop in some spatter like that, which looks quite, what's the word, loose kind of thing. Do that. For the dried out seed head up here, we could just kind of make the top part of that go like that a bit, because it kind of does. It sort of goes round like this a little bit darker in the middle. There's another one down here. And you could put some vertical lines like that. There we are, something like that. And I could mix a bit of green into the black and emphasize the stalk. Just keep it sort of varied, and where it's gone fuzzy coming out like that, that's great because that kind of looks like hairs on the stem of the poppy. So where that's happened, that's actually, I could say, a happy accident like this, because you could deliberately, come in, especially on the buds, and you could try and do that on purpose, but you'll never make it look quite as good as when it happens by accident, I don't think. Anyway, so we'll emphasize these stems a little bit. Just go down the side, not going over the original line, but just going down the side a little bit. And we can flick out underneath the flower a bit like that, maybe a bit here. You want some quite strong darks, just in small areas like that. It just kind of brings out the other colours. And the stems are a good way to do that. Also make that a bit darker around the back of that bud. Okay, and now I think I might want to go into the background a little bit more now. So you're kind of working the background, the foreground, the foreground, the background, the foreground, the background alternately kind of thing. And that was the purple with the blue. Gives quite a nice kind of mauve. And let me see, what could we do? If I continue to work with this brush, then I can do some nice dry brush work using the side of the brush. Okay, and you sort of just go in sideways, and it gives you lots and lots of quite fun texture. Which you can only get by using the side of the brush. I should have put a little bit more here in the stem region. Okay, and I'm going to actually branch out into my toothbrush a little bit here because I want to put a little bit of, I think, white spatter in the centres. So I'll just take some of this P.H. Martin's white. And just pick that up and test it. And then very carefully, very lightly, some white spatter in the middle. You can put some of that elsewhere as well. Maybe even you might want to pick up some mauve and just put some spattery things around and about. Mix some of that mauve in with the white. It gives you more interest in the background. And if you go like that, if you've got enough water on it, you can get bigger drops, which are also quite good. A bit more water. That's it. And I might want to put a few pink dots on the poppies a bit. I think it just makes them look a little bit more alive when you have sort of broken up colour like that. And yeah, so having used these brushes now for a whole painting, a complete painting, I just wanted to point out that a couple of things. One, as I said earlier, because they've got a nice shiny surface, they're easy to keep clean. And you can see that, you know, the white paint that I've got all over there just wipes off really easily. If I'd got that white paint, that gouache on my a brush with this kind of handle, which is matte, it's not shiny at all, it's very hard to get that paint off, actually. It doesn't want to come off, so they're spoiled, but these won't be spoiled. Somebody did ask the question, are the brush handles a little bit shorter than usual? And I would say yes, they possibly are, maybe a centimetre, half an inch. No, not as much as that, but something like a centimetre shorter than the average. If I compare this one with this one, for example, you can see, well, yes, that's about half an inch, isn't it? But that's not a bad thing, especially as most of the people that these are made for, most of us are women, and our hands in general, and mine are quite chunky hands, but a lot of people have got very small hands. So these brushes are nicely balanced for a small hand, although they work fine for me too. They're light. There's no weight in them at all, but they've got enough heft. They feel as if they're substantial. They're not too light, if you know what I mean. They feel fine. They're really quite good brushes, I think. So there's that. And I think that was probably the only other thing that I wanted to say about the brushes, actually, apart from the fact that if you want to get a set, pop over there right now and see if you can pick some up. So there is the final painting. This is my pink poppies for the day, and I've tried out all the brushes pretty much, and just to show you how they react and how they behave, and to remind you that this set includes 1 inch flat, a 1/2 inch mop, a 3/4 inch cat's tongue, and a number 14, number 9 and number 4 round, which is everything that you could possibly need to be able to paint nice loose paintings, either florals or landscapes or whatever you feel inclined to do. And so for the time being, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to do another picture. I'm going to find some more paper. And I'm going to just carry on with those brushes and do some leaves and things like that, just to show you, you know, a few more strokes and things. And this will be pretty random, no plan involved here. And if you have any questions in the chat, I'm there, Tamsin's there, and we can answer any of the questions that you might have. So I'm not going to do too much in the way of narration here, but I shall have a go at doing a little bit more painting, with maybe starting with a cat's tail. Tongue. Cat's tail. That's something completely different. Okay, now thinking Christmas leaves.